next year. And to take the lead on our first panel that's going to discuss that, we have an old friend of ours. Let me bring in Clayton McLaughlin, now Managing Director in Chicago at Labelium. Am I pronouncing that right, Clayton?
You got it. Labelium.
Got it. Okay. You may remember Clayton appearing regularly at this summit in many years leading search at Havas Media Group, more recently at iCrossing. He's also been a longtime advisor to MediaPost. He's on our search and he advises me on search and other summits. He is the perfect leader for this panel. He's been doing it for many, many years. Clayton, I'm gonna say hello to you and pass it on.
Perfect. Appreciate it, Steve. Great to see you. Alex, good to see you. Lisa and everyone. Two things from the previous conversations. One is the wild game chili. So if you have ever been to Deer Valley and had not had the wild game chili at Stein Eriksen, you are missing out. So that is number one on my list. And two, I cannot wait to see Chris Lehman in a slingshot because it just sounds like something bad is going to happen. Because I've seen him drive other small vehicles before and it didn't turn out well. So with that said, welcome to our panel of planning around uncertainty, which if anybody is familiar with 2020, it's basically the year of uncertainty and craziness. And so I have three esteemed panelists joining us, Joe, Christy, and Peter. And I will let you all introduce yourselves because I will do a horrible job of it. So Joe,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. So Joe Sanfratello, VP Performance Marketing with Hubble Context. Their primary for incremental growth through existing channel opportunity, all while also focus on maintaining efficiency, all within the digital channel and also some offline and traditional media.
Fantastic. Christy?
Hey everyone, Christy Clarke, Marketing Director at Belle Tire. We're a tire retailer in the Midwest.
And last but not least, Peter, the latest addition to the panel.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. So yeah, Peter Jensen, I'm the SEM manager here at Skechers USA.
Fantastic. All right, well, I'm going to kick us off. I've sort of divided some of these questions, and hopefully the conversation can continue, but I've divided these in two ways, right? One is let's talk about 2020 and cross-channel planning and sort of what have we learned, what sort of craziness did you see? And then I want to talk a little bit more about sort of fragmentation of the marketplace. So we continue to see that, and I would argue that it's probably been advanced significantly with COVID and everything else that happened this year, as were many trends. So let's start with that. So the first question is just, how did 2020 go for you and your brand? How were you able to adjust? And what were the things that you learned amidst all of what 2020 has offered us up to this point? I don't know, Peter, how about you kick us off since you joined recently?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm happy to explain our little 2020 ride, if you will. So yeah, going into 2020, I think we've been building a lot of capabilities, a lot of foundational capabilities for the brand, and that goes for both domestic and our international partners. So really, we've been working on that for about 2 years. As we kind of headed into early 2020, we had a lot of timelines that we were missing. So we were looking to launch a new website, for example, in late 2019. So we got into kind of a timeline crunch of getting in the holiday season. And as you all know, it's probably not the best time. And us, very much retail centric, that's our drive time. That's when we make our money. So it didn't make a lot of sense. We pushed back a lot of those timelines. And then as we headed into March, our ideas and our perspective changed and priorities kind of got flipped around. So a lot of the tasks and project management duties that we were currently focused on really got thrown out the door. And we really needed to level up our capabilities and we needed to really match the market. That was one of our biggest issues that we walked into 2020 kind of facing. However, we spent about 2 years really kind of building, like I mentioned, those foundational capabilities. So it just, it got into a point where it didn't matter the costs. We really just needed to accelerate all of those timelines to drive against really our milestones. And we launched a new website in July and, to the benefit of our team, it went very smooth. And that was kind of to our success. We saw the windfall, the lockdowns, drove a lot of people online. We enhanced that experience. And then we've really been aggressive at this point in time. So we're not really the leader in our market or our category. We certainly have, you know, some very large competitors, but we are a challenger. That's kind of how we look at it. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, I'll jump in, piggybacking off the retail experience in 2020. So in retail, we're used to making a lot of adjustments quickly, but never as many as in the past 10 months. We've been able to remain open as an essential business, but you know, overnight, all of our messaging priorities changed, all of our customer priorities changed, safety, pricing, financing. 2020 just gave us a lot of new scenarios to contingency plan for. For a while there was an absence of our sports marketing. Our TV spots were getting bumped for political ads, Facebook boycott, fluctuating marketplace demand. Like Alex was saying, we saw some pent-up demand hit when stimulus and unemployment checks hit. Didn't see that coming because there's really, you know, no historical way to predict this kind of stuff. We also saw an uptick in road trips over this summer that gave us a nice bump. It's really just been the year of scenario planning and replanning.
Fantastic. And I'm back. Sorry for the awkward silence. My computer does not like Zoom. So Joe, how about you?
No problem. Yeah, so similar to some situations with Peter and Christy, we had a bit of a unique situation where, so we are direct to consumer for contact lenses. We were also excited about ramping up our sister site, contactscart.com. So while we did a great job building up our brand of Hubble Contacts, we also have the other opportunity there that was ramping up. So when March came, it was a little concerning because what converts on the front end as a marketing conversion in the sale, we have a trial offer. So by the time the trial, the product ships to the customer, which happens quickly, and then the trial is used, we were trying to get an idea of what that take rate would be for month 1, 2, and so on. So in the beginning, it was this is kind of a perfect example where we didn't want to go with guessing and hypotheses. We wanted the data to kind of direct us. So considering a lot of the doctor offices were maybe shut down or slow to respond due to the pandemic and changing hours, every customer that comes through our site has to have a prescription verification. So having the whole medical part of the industry, that was concerning again, because we wanted to go heavy up front, and it actually paid off. So unfortunately, everyone's dealing with a pretty important time in our life, but the business happened to do really well. So part of that being the e-commerce, the nature of the e-commerce, but also I think everyone kind of settling in and realizing that that's going to be more of a convenience play also. So it came at a time when we were actually ramping up, similar to what Peter was saying, and fortunately, it turned out to be a pretty positive thing for our business.
Making the best of it, right?
Yeah.
So, Christy, you had mentioned like it's the year of unique scenario planning, right? And I think that's something that most brands probably, certainly I don't think anybody had pandemic in their scenario plan, right? Like that's not necessarily, Peter, like if you're launching a whole new website, there's probably a couple instances that you might go through there and expect, but this year completely, knocked everybody backwards when it comes to that. So Chris, maybe I'll start with you. And just the question is sort of what you learned from this year. Are you changing 2021 and the way that you plan based on all of this uncertainty? Are you building pandemic into scenario plans now? Or, what are the changes that you guys have made based on what we learned this year?
Yeah, we're going to continue the same test, learn, replan approach that we've taken the past 10 months, keeping budget fluid just because things are always changing and we need to be opportunistic to capture demand or recoup revenue. That does mean more digital targeting intent. We're rethinking our digital KPIs and optimization strategies. So digital, we're fine with having less of an emphasis on conversions and using digital more for awareness and consideration among people who are in need of our product.
Okay. And then Joe, you mentioned like obviously it was a good year for you guys. Does that change the way that you forecast 2021? And I think it's also particularly interesting for you, the D2C shift. Again, it was happening already, but this accelerated that, and you guys saw that in your business. So do you expect to continue to see that, or what does 2021 look like for you guys?
Sure, we do. So we know what works well. I think also part of the strategy would be to revisit maybe some channels that we've tested in the past. So the real risk is really, again, more e-commerce players in the space that may increase the cost of media. But outside of that, again, you know, we have some of our larger channels, which tends to be paid social, paid search. You know, we've tested linear TV, CTV, and you know, there's some other opportunities that we're looking to revisit. Again, just with more, you know, viewership is kind of ready and growing more into the e-commerce mindset.
Sure.
So,
and Peter, in that same vein for you, sorry, Joe, interrupting you there. As we look at, you know, what 2020 and the physical location piece of this. So Christy, I think you as well on this question is what role does digital have versus physical moving forward? Again, does that completely change, or does that just speed up plans that were already in place potentially?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think from a physical presence, we've been bullish. We've been bullish, you know, for the last maybe 5 to 10 years, especially here in the last 5 years, I would say. That's played to our benefit, and that's talking about worldwide growth. Even here in the US, we have a lot of stores. Yeah, I think even just kind of talking about and kind of latching on to Christy's point is, yeah, we've stayed very fluid. You know, we have a new website out in market. It's been received very well. The brand is definitely investing more into a digital presence. So we've made sure that, you know, everything from social media to any handle that we have out there is absolutely cleaned up and ready to go. But I think, yeah, we're in a very unique position. You know, we benefited from the prior kind of economic downturn in 2008, 2010. A lot of buyers are price conscious. You know, when they get less dollars in their pocket, they are very conscious in terms of where they're spending it. And, you know, we have a price point kind of play. And I think compared to the market, we're going to take, again, the advantage of that windfall going forward. So it's really about market share at this point. So yeah, we have the executive team weighing in on our digital kind of innovation group that I'm a part of. So I'm part of any and all like media buys. My job's increased tenfold. And yeah, we're just going to keep that fire on and the heat on in the market. We're hiring, and we are putting together, you know, a larger team. We've grown about 2 or 3x over the last 2 to 3 years. But we've also accelerated our hiring here just in the last 6 months. I think we brought on at least 5 to 7 new employees, really building our marketing stack and yeah, just being
awesome.
Yeah,
fantastic. Christy, how about you? Physical location importance.
Yeah, our in-store experience completely changed just based on the way that consumers are doing business with retailers. So our store experience went from being very personable, your neighborhood, you know, tire shop, very consultative, and now it's minimal or even no contact. So we had to adjust our digital experience to do more for our customers virtually. So, you know, some of the ways we did that, you know, live chat took on a new use case to provide customers that one-to-one shopping guidance. Online payments became a pretty important feature for customers to do touch-free service in store. And then content, because our customers are doing more of the shopping research online rather than in store. We've been creating more educational resources, videos from our tire techs to help recreate that store experience on our website. And I think that's been a positive change to our marketing that's here to stay.
For sure. Yeah. Would you consider that like a content marketing strategy more as much as a consumer sort of service strategy, customer service?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right on. Cool. Okay. Well, let's do what everybody wants to do and just move past 2020. So I want to sort of talk a little bit about sort of fragmentation, right? So we all have, you know, if you want to throw some buzzwords around there, right? We've all talked about the fragmentation of consumer attention and all the different places that consumers are going and their journey and throw whatever buzzword you want in there. But regardless, it's true, right? So I'm interested, I think we have 3 very different brands in the conversation here. So I'm interested to learn how you first find audiences across this fragmentation and across their journey. And then, you know, how do you address that ongoing fragmentation, whether that's from a KPI perspective, retargeting, any of those sort of elements too. But basically, how are you connecting the dots across this fragmentation? Anybody want to go first? I'll go with Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sure. So when we think about, so when, Hubble launched, they really had a nice niche in the market. It was really D2C. It was something very unique. So with that, starting up as a thin team, making sure you remain profitable while also getting a big part of the market share, we looked a lot at just that last touch attribution. So I think we all know that the assisted and the whole funnel is very important, the first and middle touch. But I think maturing, what you might be insinuating is just kind of going beyond that last touch and looking where other opportunities might be, to bring that conversion along. So we're kind of maturing from not just looking at the last touch to also passing parameters and variables into our sales database, so we can get an idea of what channels are not only performing, but also might have the better LTV. So we know where to focus some of those efforts, and then trying to piece it together on the back end. So while there's still an opportunity on the front end to look at the full journey, I think just being that we're driven so high with such high volume D2C on the CPA target goal, I think that's kind of the front end metric. And then in the back end, we look at where we might be able to piece together some of those journeys.
Okay. Christy, how about you guys, Belle?
Yeah, we're relying on digital intent signals. And when a consumer is in market for tires, they usually have an immediate need they can't avoid in the next few days. So we stay top of mind by following them around the internet. And then we also do a great job leveraging our first party data. We have an advantage because of the type of purchase that we have a lot of our customer data points. Well, for pretty much all of our customers, we get a ton of data. And then we're even able to predict their needs based on the product that they bought last and how long that product will last. So we can proactively message them when it's likely going to be time for them to buy new tires in a personalized way. So we use the first party data to our advantage to the full extent. And then we're investing in segmentation work and consumer journey work to understand the touch points. The output of those usually doesn't solve the puzzle, but hopefully it'll help us connect some of the pieces.
Perfect. How about Skechers?
Yeah. So we've been doing something similar. We've been using a lot of our tools that we've been building up over the years, really relying on some of the DMP analysis, our analytics. We've been doing a lot of great in-store collection of data. And something that we've been doing more recently is connecting those data points across the board and creating some larger kind of in-house data lakes and data points that we can pull together. The other side to that is, we're really starting to measure and look at distribution models differently. I think, we've gotten to the point, I've always stressed this ever since I joined, that, we are driving people in store. I just can't tell you how, when, and down to the exact dollar amount, but we need to get better at that. And I think the industry's made a lot of great strides. So we've been trying to connect those digital touch points really across the whole ecosystem, leveraging our customer service team, our CRM solution, and we're getting very close. And I think some of the in-store kind of collection online and marrying a lot of that data has been to our benefit. So we're continuing to be bullish in terms of how we gather audiences, how we find new users that match against our audiences. And something that we've been very keen on lately is, as we've been exposing the brand more and more, is what are those newer audiences that we always neglect? Sure. And I think as, during this drive time, it's, prudent upon many brands. And I think we found it, we can certainly continue to hit the bullseye. But if we really want to grow, we need to really kind of circle that bullseye, right? And also make sure that we take care of those users that might be introduced to the brand. They might be coming back to the brand, because there could be a lot of different scenarios there. But yeah, absolutely, mining our audience insights and activating against them has been our key priority, and something I've been leading. So
awesome. Do you guys have an ROI on Tony Romo, just in general?
We do, but that's a closely held secret.
Fair enough.
Tony Romo is a high ROI type of guy. So
I kind of believe that. Yeah, it's. I can tell you some stories from college about Tony Romo, because him and I are similar in age. He certainly was more successful than I was. We may have had some beers together back in the day, but all right. So continuing on that sort of fragmentation discussion, right? In the retail space in particular, we're seeing a lot more of retailer-driven networks popping up, right? So I think of Home Depot and Walmart, which again may not be as relevant, I think, for the whole group. But I think, Joe, it's interesting because like you guys would see those as direct competitors, right? So how have you seen those impacting your business overall? Is that, does it, are you planning for those pieces? Like what's the thought around those?
Yeah, so with any of the retail, so we haven't really, so for instance, I know we had a chat about, Amazon Pharmacy being announced.
Yeah.
So that's what we're keeping our eye on. I think just the nature of the business being more, medical, requiring a prescription. We do verifications for every customer with the doctors. It's a little bit complex there. So it'd be interesting to see if something like that does open up. So it is a little bit unique, not having, a direct consumer product that you can't really, leverage a lot of the other retail opportunities. Some of that can be satisfied, I guess, with some ad networks that may be buying some space on those sites, but not being part of the actual store and retail part of the store, but more within the content pages and having display ads. But for the most part, it's an opportunity, sort of like a catch-22, because going direct to consumer with our site only allows us to build that big brand.
Sure.
But again, you also wonder if you're missing that opportunity. But as far as direct competitors having the same limitations in a sense, we make sure we're in the same space and try to have the the battle there for volume and efficiency. Sure.
Peter, how about you guys? I mean, I think you're probably the one product out of this, I think, that's potentially most impacted by that, or could potentially take most advantage of those sort of retail networks that are popping up. What's that look like for your media plans?
Yeah, well, I'd say it doesn't really fall in our wheelhouse, or at least directly for my team, but it's something that we've tapped already. Yeah, I think we have worksheet products out on Home Depot, but we've always been a wholesaler first, if you will, or manufacturer first. So long story short, we built those partnerships over the years. I think, where we've been really lacking is our own first kind of party data insights, direct to consumer and also digital components. But yeah, with that said, I think as we've seen the retail kind of fall out, there's been an increasing competition coming online, even just for our own products. So I'm paying more just to sell my own products and in competition with my wholesalers, which has been a long running conversation with our team. But I think the way that we look at it is if everybody is essentially adding into the pot and everybody's making money and we're selling more units, we're okay with it. And we're really looking at that as, how do we leverage that even more so going forward? So as we get more aggressive, how do we do it in concert with our wholesalers? Making sure that as retail comes back online, we have that circled as well. That's where the brand is being very bullish in terms of the overall opportunity, not just here domestically, but internationally. So.
Right on. And Joe, you already said the big bad word, right? Amazon.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I want to jump in because we have some questions for these guys. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance. You can't hog them all to yourself, Clayton. Okay?
No, mine aren't good enough anyway. That's perfect. Let's do it.
Perfect. Well, Alex Sutton, he has a question. Let's hear from you, Alex. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go back. I'm trying to go back and find my scroll up and find my questions again. All right. So so Christy, you've mentioned that you guys are working on some customer journey work. So how are you how are you constructing your customer journey? And how might it influence your media strategy?
Yeah, so it all started with a segmentation survey. So we put a survey out to, I think, 30,000 people, and it's like a 30-page long survey on all of their demographics, all of their attitudes when they shop in our category, and what are their decision-making priorities. So from there, we can begin to see what certain segments look like, some of the, the most common consumers that will shop us, and then kind of what do they look like? What does that profile look like? If it's, women of a certain age who drive a certain type of vehicle, they might be more price conscious. They might be more interested in safety features. They might prioritize quality over economy. So it's really understanding what is most important to our customers so that we can tailor our message. So from the segmentation work, like we'll have these segments or profiles, personas, and then we'll start to look at what are the different touch points based on those those segments' media consumption, and what's the message that's going to matter most to them?
Excellent.
Alex, you had a second part of the question, if you want to ask that on degradation.
Yeah, and then Peter, or really anyone, calling out Peter because you'd mentioned that you guys are leveraging some of your audiences and trying to find appropriate lookalikes and such. Have you observed any degradation of your audiences, particularly in deploying them and how you deploy them across? Have you seen any degradation of your of the size of those audiences, or the reach, how many you're able to match against and such over the past year or so? Yeah, and that could be for anyone. If you got any of you guys who are leveraging audiences and such, I'm really curious of how this cookie degradation, how it will impact audiences, right? And the new rules on the browsers, and and so across the various browsers, and soon no ad IDs across iPhones and such. So I'm really curious to see if anyone's seeing an impact across audiences.
Yeah, I'll hop in real quick. Yeah, since you just referred, but yeah, Alex. So I think we have seen some degradation. I think in terms of how we port audiences over to our partners has been one of the impacts that we've seen. We've started to collect those, as I mentioned. We're utilizing a DMP now, so we're getting higher match rates. That's one way that we've been countering that kind of degradation effect. A little hard to tell this year, again, with the increase in volume, right? We've been but one thing that we've been challenged with is really kind of the fallout on our database. So, we do have a loyalty program. I think we could be a lot more competitive around it. That's where we're going in the future. Not to say more, but we've been very, skeptical in terms of what's happening within the database and making sure that we're bringing in new users, right? And not just reactivating old. So yeah, that's one thing that we've been focused on is, are we growing and are we getting a healthier database overall? And then using those audiences that, I think Christy had mentioned, the segmentation is key. So if we're building a good seed audience to build, let's say lookalikes or anything on a retargeting basis that you're mentioning, we need to get those match rates up. So we are seeing some degradation, something that we've made some adjustments against. And I think, that impact is on iPhone, and we do see, higher net worth and so forth. But our brand's not as much affected, I would say. But there's certainly an effect. We just don't measure it or as readily. So
yeah, okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Christy, Peter, Joe, and of course Clayton, bringing it all together. I really appreciate it. So just continue on. We're gonna say bye here, and there John is. we'll throw it to John to continue on. But again, thanks guys. It was really a great panel discussion.
Thank you all.
Thank you.